In this video, I'm going to give you a very rough way to estimate your market. And of course, there is an existing market of demand for a certain thing. And there is demand you can generate. Like, let's say people didn't know that they wanted a shirt about their favorite philosopher. But once they see it, they will think, oh, I kind of would like that t-shirt. And suddenly you've increased your market if they actually buy. If you made a clever enough t-shirt and you were good enough at marketing at actually getting that t-shirt in front of them. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. For now, let's look at existing demand. So when I search the Google keyword tool, if you're not familiar with this, this is a tool that Google provides as part of their ads. And I have access to this because I've signed up and I run their ads. You can also sign up. You don't have to run their ads. The sign up process is pretty clunky, but it's under ads.google.com. You sign up. You can skip ahead. This is under the keyword planner. So you would go to tools and settings, keyword planner. If you just join, you don't have that option. You have to actually set up an ad or somehow skip that process. There is a little link to skip the process. They make it a little hidden. In any case, what I want to show you is the demand. So this is demand you see in United States, not worldwide, in English on Google. And you can change any of these, right? You can change the language, you can change from just United States to all countries, but let's say just United States. What you'll see is here, average monthly searches. And don't look at the other columns for now. They're more confusing than helpful for now. But average monthly searches, we see that funny humor t-shirts, 27,000 people searching per month. Funny t-shirts for men, 18,000. Funny t-shirt for guys, 18,000. You see a lot of demand for these terms. And you can go down the list a long, long way. You can see how you can scroll. And of course, you can rank for those terms in Google with your website. And even though the volume changes, you see like 390, that's essentially 400 people searching. You can ask, is that a lot or is that little? Well, you see, let's say you search for funny t-shirt, and from the organic, you see sponsored, sponsored, sponsored. We're not after that. From the organic, let's say by some miracle, we get to the #1 spot. Approximately 15% to 20% will click on the first 2 spots. Then as the page scrolls down, the number of people who actually click on everything lower and lower goes down. And then once you get to the bottom of the first page, you get to maybe the 5%. So that's the breakdown. So we can see that out of these 400 people, if we're lucky, 50 people will click on our page. That's, let's say, just from this one search. And from those 50 people, let's say we have a conversion rate of 5%, which is reasonable. That's 2 to 3 sales approximately. And we know that all of these variations will add up to maybe over 100,000 people. So let's say we do a calculation. Out of 100,000 people, 15% of them will land on our website. That's actually 15,000 people. And at 5% conversion, 5% of 15,000, that's 750 sales. That's really quite good compared to the fact that we'll also be able to sell from Etsy and Amazon. So it's not unreasonable if we do really great marketing for SEO, that's search engine optimization, and put our designs on Amazon and put our designs on Etsy and maybe other websites that sell t-shirts, that we can get 1,000 sales per month. That's reasonable, especially with a staff member who's responsible for overseeing this at a full-time rate. And of course, if we're looking at our potential, well, we can also calculate, well, the same calculation for a jacket or a hoodie or a hat, right? Because we're also going to sell those items as a plan for the future. So that would also go into our calculation into how big our opportunity is. But keep in mind, this is only demand based. Demand meaning people actually searching, people looking for this now. What we aren't calculating is our ability to generate demand, because remember, the whole premise, or one of the major premises, is that these shirts are interesting, they stand out, and they're viral. People start conversations about them, and people tell each other because they connect on something that they care about. This is one of the major reasons I love this business idea. So in addition to the 750 sales from Google search and maybe additional, let's say 500 sales from Amazon and Etsy, this is not overnight. Maybe in a year or two, let's give ourselves reasonable time horizon. So let's say in 2 years, we're going to end up with 750 sales from Google. So let's count that here, 750 from Google, plus 500 sales from Etsy and Amazon, plus the sales we will drum up from virality sales, plus publicity we do. And we can add, or we don't have to add, ads. Ads are tricky because we have to spend a lot. So it's not clear how profitable these sales will be. Of course, I can already picture a scenario where, let's say you run ads on a keyword like cat t-shirt or funny t-shirt. Well, those are very competitive. So the ads will be not so profitable because they'll be expensive. So let's actually give these some estimates. So let's say we're going to get 250 sales per month from the ads, and the publicity is going to get us, let's say 100. And then the virality sales, maybe that's another 100. And obviously, the more people buy and wear these shirts, the more the virality number will increase. And these ads, the 250, these will come from demand-based ads. People searching Google for cat t-shirts or dog t-shirts, etc. But there are other kinds of ads. And these are the ads that perhaps are going to be the most compelling. These are the ads that we're going to push onto people, like let's say on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, people who, let's say, like something obscure, like they like ants, and that's their hobby, and they're in a bunch of ants groups. Well, there's nobody selling them t-shirts or anything, right? So they're kind of obscure niche thing. That's where we come in, because we can run a super cheap ad with that t-shirt. T-shirt costs $0 to make because we just use AI to create the design, and boom, suddenly we have an ad. And this ad can go into just about any niche. And I think this is where the potential is. If this works, this has the potential to, in the beginning, maybe 100 sales a month. But as this strategy works out and we perfect it, it might grow. So actually, long term, I project 1,000 sales. Not to mention that if that's profitable and if we can keep pushing the ad out to people who don't demand it now, that's actually how this is going to become a household name in many industries, and over time, in general, just a household name. And then suddenly, this number grows. Instead of 1,000, as we scale, 5,000. And as this becomes a household name, the gifting sales come in. These are cheap, amazing gifts for people you like, and they actually will really like those gifts because it's kind of cute and funny and maybe even helpful because you might meet somebody you know. So let's say 1 more 1,000, but this can really be a bigger number. So for now, we have between 5,000 and 10,000 sales per month as a very, very good, but kind of possible long-term goal. Kind of possible because everything has to work out so right. Usually things never work out so perfectly, but we can dream, and ultimately we have control of it, because as these sales grows, they will finance staff we can hire, and that staff will oversee that. Ultimately, we end up winning in all of these ads and all of this SEO that we do and all of the other marketing we do. There's going to be somebody full-time monitoring the results and improving things and tinkering. And also, what we can do is ultimately think about maybe getting into retail. So let's say another 1,000 sales per month, depending on which retail, depending in what way. It's hard to see now, but now we're getting closer to 10,000 sales per month. And so now, because we've done the financial calculations of gross profit, net profit in the past, we're able to tell how profitable this will be. So let's say we end up getting to somehow 10,000 sales per month. That's $20 times 10,000, which is $200,000. Obviously, we're going to subtract half of that for COGS. We're going to subtract maybe another $30,000 to $50,000 to various expenses like staff for marketing and sales, but we're going to end up with maybe $50,000 of profit a month. I mean, that's a good place to be. And from there, as we grow this, grow the ads, grow the brand of this, we're ultimately going to be working towards spending some of that profit on bigger and bigger ads that make us a more and more recognized brand. And when this is a brand, suddenly this business is worth a lot more. And by the way, all these figures are just based on US, because once we start selling all over the world, that will also increase revenue. It increases complexity, like with shipping and things like that, but still, it does increase revenue and profitability. But now you can see the milestones you should set, the demand you have versus demand you need to generate, and then you can plan out different milestones you can set that are realistic. You can give yourself proper time horizons, etc., etc., etc. These things now aren't perfect because you can't project, because what if I make 0 sales in 2 years? But if everything goes well, at least you can start making real projections that you can show to investors. And if they quiz you, you can tell them exactly where the projections are coming from and how you came up with it, and have it make sense. Because if they quiz you and if you have no answer or not a sophisticated answer, that looks bad. But if you have a sophisticated answer, they will see that, oh, you've done your homework. And this is actually good for us as well, because if we think to ourselves, should we really do this business? This kind of a calculation tells us yes or no. I mean, this is quite profitable potentially, so this feels like it's worth doing.